First of all, the term industrial, where asset class, real estate, it's kind of a misnomer. I think industrial became the name of the asset class way back when we actually had manufacturing here. But when referring to industrial today, here across the country, it's all about warehouses. And I'm going to give you the secret to the industrial business, so take a note. Within 300 to 400 miles of New York City is a third of the population of the United States. We all consume stuff. Inside the warehouses, we keep the stuff. That's it. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar, ladies, all familiar with Amazon, right? You're welcome. So I've been in the industrial development business for about 30 years, and it's interesting, as Paul mentioned about the no-growth state, I've watched the industry change. When I got in the business, there was vacant land, farmlands, various lands. Meadowlands was tough, but as you came further south, you had farmlands, Exit 8A, and you basically just went for your approvals and you built the building. However, believe it or not, from central New Jersey north, we are basically out of industrial land. As much as you drive around and see it, there is no land left. I prefer to be in the high barrier to entry marketplaces. So my company, we're in LA, Miami, Chicago, and New Jersey. All high barrier to entry. The reason is that if we can come up with the sites, we create real value for ourselves as well as our capital partners. However, to try to find land in these markets is really challenging. Matter of fact, let's see. I will be also admit to you, I did not know how to get to the site. I drove all around it for years. But when it finally came to me, I recognized quickly it's 5 miles from the port of New York and New Jersey. However, there was about 800,000 feet of existing structures from the old Tuscan dairy days. So what does that mean? That means that basically we've got to go in now when we're almost creating land, in a sense, you might consider part of what I do, is we'll look at a site like this and we'll have to figure out all the demo costs to get rid of the structures. Every site we touch has environmental conditions, because whether you realize it or not, north of 8A, we're kind of a polluted state. And you also, on these old sites, you have to spend a lot of money on geotechnical support within the soils, because modern warehouses today require heavy floor loads, and the buildings will actually sink, which is frowned upon by our investors. And this is the end result. If you've been down there recently, you'll see we just completed the shell on a 264,000 square foot building with some extra parking storage over here. And I'm proud to say we just signed a lease for half of the building. It'll be done by the end of this week, and we'll kind of move forward from there. And I think you took some of my notes, Bill, but that's okay. So the challenge is really to find these infill opportunities, but when you're in a market as tight as this, with vacancies as low, when you can create something like this, and the reason we can is because the market is strong, the rent support, the additional costs that we have to do. And our model is to build a building, stabilize it with the tenancy, and ultimately exit to an institutional investor. So how many hours a week? I think you'll find a consistent flow here, 6 days a week, pretty much. But for those of us in this business, it really, hate to say it, doesn't seem like work. We really all enjoy what we do with it, and the hours just kind of clip by. I think the most exciting part, though, is really working through a development process, something like this that's so complicated, and realizing that you're actually creating a terrific asset, but you're also creating great ratables for the towns and jobs in the community. So how stressful is the job? Real estate is a love-hate relationship, and you'll probably love-hate it within 6 times in any given day. The reason being is there's a lot of approvals, a lot of stress you have to go through, most of which has to do with financial stress. Because when you're writing your own checks, I remember when I jumped out of the plane in 13 to start my own and connected with the folks at Bridge, first thing they said, well, you're writing the checks and you're signing personally on the mortgage, right? I said, sure. And I went home, explained to my wife carefully how that works, and By the second, third, and fourth deal, my realization was, well, how broke can I really get? I mean, you only go broke once, right? So, but you know, in some sense, you have to be a bit of a gambler to be in this business. Ironically, I hate AC, but I love to gamble in real estate. The work environment, in the office, Monday mornings, Friday afternoons, everywhere in between, you'll see cell phones going off here. We're all on the cell phone. We're in our cars, living out of our cars, meeting with town officials, professionals, county officials, DEP in my case, because these old industrial sites are full of contamination. But it's really, it's a lot of fun. I've got to say that. It just truly is a blessing. So what kind of earnings can you make? You know, traditional, you'll leave school, probably start as an analyst role somewhere, and you'll make a good income with a bonus and incentives and package, and that's good. You can track very well in a real estate career with call it a more conventional job. However, if you're a bit of a risk taker and aspire to be a principal, there really is no limit. Because at the end of the day, you're putting your cash in your deals, and if you don't know what waterfalls are, you'll find out what they are soon enough. And that's really where those opportunities are. The other thing is, to be good in our business, you really have to be good at problem solving. As you heard, I'm an NJIT grad. I did shake off most of my engineering. But you have to be good at looking at sites that are technically complicated, understanding what needs to be done, working with townships you have to be very good at politics in what we do. Go through the politics, be able to see through the smoke. You have to be a problem solver at the end of the day. I don't want to paint an overly rosy picture. You can make billions of dollars in this business. But as Paul referred to, if something goes sideways on a deal, you and your partners could also lose the same amount of money. But we're all very bullish and very seasoned, and knock on wood, we're all in pretty good shape up here. So, did I make a good decision to get into the real estate business? Absolutely. I'm truly blessed to be in the real estate business. The only regret, if it's such a thing, is I got into this business backwards. As you heard, I was an engineer. Halfway through engineering school, didn't realize I didn't want to be an engineer. Parents love that decision. But I got out, and I eventually started working in the air conditioning business, working my way towards real estate development. You know, if I knew then what I know now, I would have gone to business school, graduated with finance, and definitely got into real estate, and maybe be 10 years further ahead of my career. I'll leave you with this last thought. I have 4 sons. Thankfully, they all got out of college, and I'm just cleaning up the carnage right now. 3 of them got into the real estate industry. No prompting of mine. Candidly, we didn't really talk a lot about the industry. They knew what I did. They knew a warehouse, etc. But they each took a course at school, Real Estate Development 101. And I remember getting the phone calls. My youngest son, Connor's like, he's ecstatic. He says, Dad, I just took a development course. The real estate business is the coolest business I've ever seen. And I'm like, really? You think? But the words I left them is, chase the passion. The same thing we're going to tell you today. Find your passion, light it up, and chase it. The real estate business is a good business. But the one word of advice I will leave you is, even though we build buildings, we use bricks and mortar, concrete, steel, the business has very little to do with buildings. The business has everything to do with personal relationships with people. And being personable, solving each other's needs, looking for what they need to accomplish, and truly developing that win-win scenario will make you extremely successful in this business. And I didn't get the button.